I played 3 full hours of Doom the Dark Ages across ground, Slayer battle, Atlan mechs and dragons, and here's what I liked, didn't like, and the truth behind the community's worries. This is the first in a series of Dark Ages breakdowns from my experiences, so subscribe if you're into learning about what I saw. Now, the first things first, we gotta get this out of here, okay? The community is worried about, is the game too slow, or difficulty sliders woke, or glory kills gone, is the music bad, is quickswitching dead? Alright, so first things first, this game, before we get into all the details, is not slow. I mean, I played on game speed 100%, the standard fare, and even without cranking the game speed to 150, it felt fine. Now, to be sure here, this is not like the acrobatics of Doom Eternal. You're not going to fly around, your fingers aren't going to be bashing all over all the keys. Well, yeah, they will. Let me get to that in a sec. You will be doing stuff. Even a game like Left 4 Dead, which is slower than Doom, you are still busy enough with all the game's mechanics and combat and learning what it asks of you to do. If you're worried about base movement speed and traversing around the map, don't worry, there is a sprint button, yes, and you can use it for a lot longer than you'd think. And man, does it sound so good when the Slayers just stomp. I gotta get to the sound design in just a minute. It blows Eternal out of the water in this regard. Like, there's so much cool stuff I saw in this 3 hours that you gotta hear it. So the game is not slow because, although you're not quick switching, let's talk about that actually. Quick switching, is it dead? It is not in the same form unless people maybe shotgun swap, but most of the guns, now hear this out too, if you're a fan of classic Doom, you're going to love this one, because a lot of people didn't like how Doom Eternal did their guns and the quick swapping, and they felt like it's not for me. Well, if you're into classic Doom, you really need to give this a shot, because what most of the guns were like hold down fire, like chain gun type, plasma type. You do have the shotgun and the super shotgun, which are huge, thick, beefy, meaty. Oh my goodness, they feel so good to use. I just cannot ever state that enough. But the thing is, the difference now comes from all the other things you're going to be doing. So whereas in Eternal, you would Meathook through the air, PB, SSG, now what you're going to be doing, shooting with your chain gun type of Skull Crusher, getting a speed boost and running around from the kills, and then you're going to pull up your shield to block, but then you're going to gun them down again. But what you need to do is shield bash over to this enemy to take him down. You're going to throw your shield saw back at them. It's going to come back to you. You're going to throw it at another group. You're going to hit the right mouse button to recall the shield saw instantly to you as you bash off to, like, you're going to be doing a lot of stuff. You are busy. This is a hard game to play coming from Eternal. It is challenging. It is really cool though. So if you're worried about the game being slow, don't worry. It is fast in other regards. And if it's too slow, turn up the game speed. Turn up the projectile speed. If you play Dusk, you can actually have different difficulties with different projectile speeds. Like, if you're worried about it being slow, don't worry. Id Software has you covered. And we also have Sprint, don't forget. Now, if the difficulty sliders, you can also play on the different difficulty settings. I tried everywhere from ultraviolence down, so while I didn't manually adjust the sliders, I got to play them at their different levels to see how the game feels. And yes, it is going to be somewhere for everyone. So if you don't like what you have, fix it to how you want it to be. Now, people are saying, are the glory kills gone? Well, they're actually glory strikes now, and you can still feel them, okay? So whenever I would go in for the GKs, what are now the glory strikes, I noticed that it would slow down a little bit on the camera for the emotional, dramatic feel. I'd smack the enemy off and then keep going. So there is still that glory kill feel, except it is more fluid. You're not like, okay, it's a sync animation, a quick time event to where you're in and out, which has its own strategic elements. You can use a glory kill in Eternal in 2016 to stop hits from hitting you doing damage, and traversal even as well, which also brings me to another point about the Meathook. There's a new Meathook of sorts. We'll get to that in a second. Now, there are still actually glory kills. I was playing one level in particular, and the objective was to take a heart from an enemy, and when I did this, it literally ripped it out of his chest. I mean, that's not the only time it happened. Like, there are still glory kills. If you want that nasty, visceral feeling of ripping something out of an enemy's chest, it's not gone. Like, come on, id Software knows that those are such an integral part of the series. They want to keep that same brutality, but put it in a new, fresh way 5 years later, because somehow Doom Eternal is 5 years old already. Is the music bad? No. Now, as I've always said before, the more people are hearing from Finishing Move, I'm noticing in the comments, on Reddit, on all social media, they are liking it more and more. Now, I actually got to hear it in the game, which is a whole different aspect to hearing it just on the soundtrack. Now, I should have turned it up a little bit volume-wise, but I kept everything default just so I could try to get the pure out-of-the-box experience, even control-wise, which is still smooth. And I do think that the music sounds good. It's fun. You don't worry about it. Now, I've talked before about how iconic will it be? Will it go down in history in memes like The Only Thing They Fear Is You, in completely unrelated memes? Time will tell that. We just don't know the whole social community factor of it yet. But it works. It is fine. You should not worry. Now, I talked about the Meathook. There is no Meathook on your super shotgun. I think, and at least the way that I used it, the shield bash will replace the Meathook. And even Eternal had a little shield bash that you could scoot and fly over an enemy, and this one's a little different. Now, even before you get the saw element where you can cut into an enemy, that's a whole other thing we'll talk about here in just a minute, you hold down the right click and you just dash toward the enemy. Think of it like a seek and destroy glory kill, especially where you have that extended range. You can like warp and teleport to the enemies, except this time you just obliterate everything. If it's a heavier enemy, like some of these imp stalkers were, interestingly enough, it'll kind of falter them a little. If it is a fodder enemy, you'll just kill them, like the soldiers. So you will find using the shield bash to get around a whole lot in place of your Meathook. Now, what's interesting about the shield bash is if you see an enemy up on an elevated position, you can look up and bash up to him, go up to him. So you still have that mobility. It's not gone, it's just in a different packaging. You can shield bash down below onto enemies and just enter the fight with some power, leaving a message. Now, you do need to watch out if you go to shield bash a Mancubus without having an opening. It's just like in Doom Eternal. You throw out a frag grenade or your ice bomb, the Mancubus wall falls back a little bit, then you go for your blood punch. Well, I found myself even accidentally, maybe this is just skill issue, maybe I just need to get a little bit better, shield bashing too much into the Mancubi without having an opening, like the super shotgun would be an opening in this case, whereas in Eternal, not as much of an opening. I accidentally get up there, I get close to the Mancubus, I'd be like, oh crap, I don't have an opening. Well, I had no dash button to get back out, so I would hit trying to melee the Mancubus, and it just was a bad time. This is skill issue. I don't know why I accidentally went up to them too much, but still, something I noticed that you should really pay important attention to as well. Now, the shield saw is super important because when you get the chain blade around it, which you don't start out with that, you can throw it to enemies, and if they're superheated armor, they'll break into armor for you. So you can light them up with your gun. It's one of the guns, I think plasma, and it'll turn their armor orange. You'll throw your shield saw at it. They'll explode like a flame belch. And so that is the new flame belch, in my opinion. And you can think about some enemies might already be superheated, so you could do that, or you could light them up yourself and figure out and pick which enemies you want to be superheated in their armor. It's kind of nice because the Cyber Mancubus from Eternal, its armor was only a cosmetic thing with the blood punch from some testing I did. So this actually puts some nice functionality to it. You can platform around with the shield, you can throw it in lower chains and actually traverse that way, or you can use them like a Meathook node. Remember the tag 2 Meathook nodes? You throw your shield up and you can hit the button again and you'll go right up to where it is, kind of fly through the air. Interestingly enough, the shield saw will have walls that you can break. You'll see the little green icon and you bash over to them to break that wall, or instead of just punch it open with your fist, or you sprint across and you jump across and bash, and there's a lot of interesting things that you can think about in the environment as well that this shield saw can do. Now, you may be wondering about parrying. Now, I didn't do it enough, and it did come back to bite me. Like, this is a key system that you're going to want to learn to be able to get those openings into the enemy and do a lot of damage to them. I think parrying is something that it could be looked at a much deeper level as its own video instead of even just a surface level. Now, I'm curious of some of the countermeasures to parrying. Say, what prevents the player from just spamming the button to force themselves into the right window? The different difficulties will have different parry windows and timings, but I think that ultimately the skill will come down to mastering that window and being able to understand when it's coming, how it's coming, and not just deflecting one projectile at a time, but sometimes we'll be forced to do multiple chain parry combos. So there's a whole lot of depth that could come from this, and it's going to be tweakable due to the difficulty sliders and skill levels that I think in time we will truly learn how to master. So like Eternal's DNA, it is still there. It's not gone. It's just you can't see all of this just from a gameplay trailer that you're watching at the Dev Direct. There's so much more intricacies and things that you have to experience yourself to see. But yeah, the shield saw, so important. Because like I say, if you have a fodder, it just rips through them. You just kill them. If you have a heavy, it will stun lock them in place like a stun bomb from 2016, so it creates an opening for you to go in there because it locks in place on them for a while. And so there's a lot of strategy and elements into that. And you can also throw it, hit the right mouse button to recall it instantly. So you can throw it out, hit some enemies, scoot over to the side, line up for it to come back like a boomerang, hit some other enemies on its way back, and combo that way. Or you can throw it at the original group of enemies and you're like, okay, I'm done, I need it back. Hit your right mouse button, it'll instantly come back to you. So understanding when to recall, when to not, line your body up to how you want the boomerang shield saw to come back is all combat aspects you're going to need to be thinking of when you're playing this. Like, are you seeing how it's still complicated? Like it's not bad. It's okay. People are worrying for no reason. There's just so much cool stuff you can do with it. Now, when it came to the melee, you have the race car HUD vibes for the melee charges. You can pick those up on the ground or whatever. There's the gauntlets, the flail, and the mace, basically like from easiest, medium, heavy. So the gauntlet is fast. You can do like if you played Hexen, you have the 1, 2, 3 combo to where you can do like a triple hit there. But it's kind of the weakest of the group. The mace was my favorite of what we played, or the flail. I didn't get to try the mace, but the flail in the middle just felt so powerful going into the Mangybai. It was really, really nice. Just go in there and just feel the power of the Slayer and do some damage. Now, keeping in mind, the higher the melee goes, the slower but more chunky and powerful it will be. So you can switch off in the menus to figure out what you want to use at what point in time. Same thing with any of the guns. Like, there are so many upgrades in this game, it is crazy. And upgrades have combos, like one upgrade could be tied in with another and you can pick judging from that. It's so different. Like, it's going to be hard coming from 2016 Eternal because we're so used to how they did it and some of the weapons, but it's so much different now. Your shield saw has upgrades, your melee does, your guns do. And what I found, whenever I did glory kills on these big enemies, they would give me like the Argent cells, the upgrades. So I would notice like, oh, health increase from this special story glory kill. Oh, totally different aspect of it. So we also have the upgrades have gold as the most common currency. You find it lying around the ground, or you can find it in chests for a bunch of it. There's also these rubies, which is more of like a premium currency that you can use for certain upgrades. So it's almost like a shop inside of your menu. Kind of different, but interesting approach to it. Now, you remember I was telling you about the sound and the feel? Man, oh man, oh man. When the Slayer lands up from way high, the impact compensation of 2016, it feels so chunky. The shotgun, super shotgun, really feels like you're shooting a hole through the surface of the demons. Oh my goodness. The guns feel powerful. When you melee, you hear the skin ripping off of the demons, and it is so... It's better than Eternal. It's better than 2016. The sound design, as far as the thick and chunky, thick Slayer sound, they really put some meat behind it. And you will notice it. When the Slayer is sprinting, he is literally like an iron tank, just stomp, stomp, stomp. It surprised me. Like, the sound in this game, I cannot, it bears repeating, it's good, man. It's really good, and it is better than, it's the best one yet. Hands down. I'm going to go on record saying it's the best one yet. Extra life mode is going to be a little bit different, a lot different too. It's called Pandemonium this time. And the easiest difficulty is called Aspiring Slayer. So we have some differences in the difficulties and some things. Now, the extra life, the life sigils that you pick up are your extra lives. They're in secrets or they're hidden. There's not so many of them now. And you can only hold 5 of them at a time. So when you die, you load at your checkpoint. So now, gone are the days of 53 extra lives. Like, you can only hold 5 at once. And maybe if you capped out at 5 and you find another one, okay, you're 5 max. So the game ensures that you're never going to go too far beyond just from being really, really good. Now, something I did notice, I wonder if they're going to change this. I kind of hope so. When you die, it pops up with a screen, kind of like a pause screen, that says, do you want to use your extra life? You can say yes, you can say no. Now, I liked how Eternal did it. Your screen went gray and you lost all your armor, kept your health. It kept you in the heat of the battle. It kept your nerves and tension high, and you get to react from it. And it just kept everything flowing, whereas this was a pause, like, okay, I get a breather, do I want to use this, not? Yeah, most people are going to say yes, I do want to use my extra life. Some people will say no. Now, you may want to say no if you are playing through the game, not on Ultra, the Pandemonium, whatever, and maybe you want to keep that extra life for a later section that you know is going to be more difficult, instead of just burning it up now just because you have screwed up or something like that. Overall, I do hope it goes back to where it was, for sure. The menu music, pretty rad. The menu itself, also pretty rad. The music, I heard a classic Doom Into Sandy City reference in one of the tracks on one of the levels. It just popped out in my ear, so like, that is still going to be there. The music is still Doom. It is still there. It's still calling back to those classics that we know and love. I am, though, curious about the difficulty changing with the names, how people are going to take that, losing I'm Too Young to Die. But I think it's fine. It's just a name change all around. Maybe it's more welcoming or more open for this new name with Aspiring Slayer. I do think it's interesting that they called Extra Life Mode Pandemonium. Pretty cool stuff there. Now, the Atlan, he has punches and a powerful hit too, so you can basically have a charge up hit. And early on I found myself button mashing, just left click, trying to punch. It doesn't work that way. You need to have the Doom Dance, the combat, to where, I'll get to this in a second too, you punch, you build up that, then you do your powerful hit, but then you do what is not necessarily a parry, but what's called a perfect dodge. So you will basically swipe out of the way at the last minute, which relates to the dragon too, and then that was how you were rewarded, was perfect dodge, and you get your powerful hit in. He has a rocket punch that breaks stuff to, like, for example, the big walls you have to get through, that's fine, and a stomp on the ground too. It really shows the power behind the Slayer and the mech. Whenever you're running through the level with the Atlan, you're like seeing all these people fighting on these bridges, just doing battle for their lives, and then you just run through the bridge and just take everybody out. Bodies are flying, everything's going everywhere. The tanks on the ground are shooting at you, nothing matters. You're not affected. You're the Atlan. It's a power fantasy for sure. Now, I do want to talk more about the Atlan as well, go over some footage in a later video, so do subscribe if you want to see that. Same thing with the dragon. I did not do too great on the dragon section. Maybe skill issue, maybe not. But what they did interesting, you can fly up, you can fly down, you can even glory kill on the dragon, and I think it was just, I didn't do too great on it. You have a Gatling gun, but you also need to make sure you do the perfect dodges. So for example, the objectives, you would destroy these turrets on the hell barges, and destroy all those, dodge out of the way, infiltrate on the dragon. You'd land the dragon on the ship, go inside the ship on your feet, destroy the core, then go back out, land on the dragon, and continue on and fly around and shoot stuff. That's pretty cool. I just wonder how much depth there is to it, because we only got to play one little section of it. I have some theories about the dragon, but you know, when you only get to play a little bit, you're teased and you want to know what is there. Maybe do I get upgraded guns for the dragon or more? It's just hard to tell. Now, the cinematics in the world feel so much more different. I'll get to that in a second, but I do want to talk about the non-linearity. Foundry, Argent Facility, you go and you kill the monsters, and you go back, whatever order you want to, you can go this objective first, that objective first, and that is what this feels like on the level that I played, which was really cool to see. I could decide I want to go over here and take this out first, and you gotta love it. You do see some new types of combat. Leaders are a new thing. They have a health bar up at the top that's red, and just under it there's a purple bar. You kill enough demons to weaken the purple bar, and then when it's gone, the leader of the group is now vulnerable. The bigger the demons are that you kill, the more of the meter that you get to weaken down. So you have to worry about this gigantic mini-boss of sorts while you're taking all these other demons, and then you finally take him out, and you don't want to wait too long because more will spawn in. It's pretty tricky, and it's definitely a mechanic that we've not seen yet before. Now, we do have tentacles. They are back, but they sound the same. They look more dark agey, but I did not see any purple goo in what I played as well. They do have Pinky Riders, which really interested me because they remind me of the Chaos Serpent and Disparal of Heretic and Hexen, to where you have to take down the Pinky Rider and the Pinky, and it's a really interesting change on the Pinky on what we've seen over these past 30 years. We'll talk more about enemies as well. Now, the world itself feels so much more full. There are NPC sentinels around this village. If you shoot them, there's a yellow force field thing that pops up to prevent damage, which kind of all this stuff about the Atlans and the people makes sense because Hugo did work on Pacific Rim. Now, you see the world. It's not just a Slayer walking through by himself. There are people just cowering in the corner on the village. The sentinels look at you, and it's like you are in a world that's full and not empty. The cinematics, man, this game feels like a movie in a way. Eternal just had the Slayer in his cutscene doing his thing, blasting the surface of Mars, whatever. These feel like a full-scale movie. We have new characters, we have new people, we have NPCs all around, and it's so much different. We see a brutal intro scene of an imp ripping apart a human, others ripping it into arms off, legs off. It's not stuff we'd see in Eternal. Better graphics and more movie-like. We do things that are just not in Doom Eternal. Getting on a Gatling gun, blasting down a Titan. Then when he comes to bring his arm down to take you down off that gun, you fire a bolt to knock him out of the way, and you shoot your gun. There's just so much stuff that Eternal doesn't have, in elements and depth that we never have seen before. And it is all done in a game that is not slow. If you want more Dark Ages breakdowns, watch the video on your screen and subscribe to this channel because I will have more coming for you. Thank you for watching.